Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of this entering and formatting data videos. Okay, and in this part we're going to have a look at some simple formatting of the spreadsheet we created in the last exercise. So in the last exercise you should have got to this point here. So using the material from your workbook, starting on the section called formatting cells, I'm just going to arrange that so it's on the right side and my spreadsheet on the left. Okay, let's have a look at doing some simple formatting. Now I'm just going to make that a little wider so we can see it a bit easier. Now we did cover before how to make cells wider or narrower. The simplest way of doing that is put the cursor in between two columns, like between say B and C here, and then hold down the left hand mouse button and drag either to the left to make it narrower or drag to the right to make it wider. You can also put the cursor in the same position and double click the left hand mouse button. What that does is to make the cell wide enough to hold the widest content. Now that may be something which is a time saver, and you can highlight a number of columns and then do the same thing. Simply put the cursor in between any of the two column headings, like I'm showing you here, between D and E, and then double click the left hand mouse button. Okay, and that automatically makes the columns wide enough for the largest content. Now sometimes you're going to be careful doing that. I'll do that between A and B here, and we get to that situation that I described before. You've got all this extra white space, and we don't want that kind of situation. So I'm just going to manually drag that back to the left. And in fact, I don't like the narrowness of columns B, C, D, and E. So I'm just going to highlight all the columns again. Notice how I did that. Put the cursor on B and drag across to C, D, and E. Okay, up the top there, and then I'm simply going to drag, put the cursor in between any two of the columns, and then simply drag a little bit to the right, and then all four columns get changed at the same time. And I'll make that a little bit wider because the February one was a little too narrow. Okay, so the other thing you can do is you can right click. Okay, so put the cursor inside a column, right click, and you can go to format cells, and on alignment, is it alignment? No, it's not. Okay, I'm just trying to find out where the making the column width is. Let me just check for that here. Okay, so I'm going to select an area, right click, and where is that meant to be? Okay, copy, format cells. Okay, that is definitely not coming up with column width there, which is a bit frustrating. Let me just try and do that over there. Okay, now I'm not getting this description of column width as given here, which is a bit weird. I would have thought that that would have happened. It's not something I use very often. I tend to actually just highlight or use the column width thing here. Let me just try clicking up there. Yeah, that's better. Alright, so if you actually click on the column heading, the B, the A, or the C or D, and right click there, then you can click on column width, and at the moment that's set to 8.57. So if I make that a 12, say, click OK, then the column becomes width 12, and I actually think that's far too wide, so I'm just going to bring it back to roughly what I had before. Okay, so column widths. Now moving down to formatting cells with numbers. Okay, we've got these numbers here. Now notice that these numbers, some of them have one digit after the decimal point, some have two, some have none. Okay, and what we normally try and do with numbers is we want to have the same number of digits after the decimal point, so that things like the ones and the tens and the hundreds and the thousands and the, well, if there's money, for example, the tens of cents all line up together properly, so you can add them easier and compare them easier. So this is talking about how you can format different ways of formatting numbers, and there's this section up here under general here which allows you to choose some formatting options for numbers. So for example, if I say select cells B6 to H18, so let's do that. Notice that H18 doesn't have some parts of it here don't have numbers in it at the moment, but later on they will. Okay, and it says click to see the formatting options. So let's do that. Click down. Notice you get this list of things here. Okay, and we're going to select the number format. Okay, so notice that they all now have the same 2 digits after the decimal point. Now the other thing you can do, notice it says comma style. So if you want to have a comma, oops, that's now what does that mean? It means that these columns are not wide enough to show the numbers. So let me just highlight those columns B to H and make them a little wider so we can actually see the content. So if you see those hash symbols, by hash I mean these symbols, it means that the column's not wide enough, and make it wider. So what did I click on before? Well, I had B6 to H18 highlighted, and I clicked on that comma here. So notice now before the thousands place there is a comma. So if I type in a really big number like 1,256,789, make that wide enough so we can actually see it, notice that before the thousands and before the millions, you basically after every group of 3 digits you get that comma separation. So that's that comma style. Let me get rid of that, make that a little narrower. Okay, so that's talking about that there. Another way of bringing up the formatting for numbers is if we highlight B6 to H18 again, and you right click somewhere in that grey area and go to format cells, you can choose different number or different kinds of formatting. Here it's accounting style. I actually want that to be number. Okay, and using the comma separator, and click OK. If you wanted it to be currency, so you get the dollar sign in. So notice that didn't happen straight off. That is definitely a bug in Excel, which I wonder which version will eventually fix that. So format cells, let's go back to currency, click OK. So notice now we get that dollar sign in front of the numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to change that back to normal number. Okay, so that's that one. Moving this down here. Right, this should be saved as now F&G Sales Exercise 2. So File, Save As, my current folder. Is that the right one? I think it is. So let me just make that now Exercise 2. Okay, then down on formatting text, this is going to be Exercise 3. So in fact I'll save this straight away also as Exercise 3. Save that. Now the key things they're talking about here are selecting the months, okay, and making those bold by clicking on the B here, or you can go Control B on your keyboard and Control B again to undo that, or use the bar here. Okay, and we're wanting books and CDs to be bold, italic and underlined. So how do I select that cell and that cell without selecting everything in between? Well, you click on that cell, hold down the Control key, and then click in that cell, and we want it bold and italic, and the text insists that this be underlined. Now, let me just say a little bit about underlining. I think that looks horrible underlined. I would never ever use underlining. So in fact I'm going to make that not underlined because I think it looks horrible. and I would recommend strongly that you don't use underlining to emphasize things. Okay, what else have we got here? Alright, we want the totals: A10, A16, A18, A10, A16, A18, and F4 to be bold, so we'll make them bold. And okay, the headings. Right, see these headings here? Quite often you want to have those centered across where your data is. Now I think we're going to have later on stuff in column H, so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight from A1 through to H1, and I'm going to click on this merge and center button here. Let me just make that full size. You can actually see that if you make your screen full size, it actually says merge and center. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with this one here, merge and center. And if I go back to that, we actually want to make that bold Calibri 12. Okay, so format the subheading A2 to that one, bold Calibri size 12, and okay, in A1 it says here to make that bold Calibri in size 14. Okay, normally the main heading is slightly bigger than the subheading. Okay, now you can read through this here and make sure that we've done all the formatting that's required, and then I want you to move on to the stacks. It means we exercise 1, the Elvis Electrical exercise 1, and the Consultus exercise 1, basically using the same type of skills. So let me just try and get rid of that. Yep. Okay, so we'll catch you on the next video.